All right, what is up, YouTube and traders from around the world? It's Robert Falco with Real Life Trading, bringing you your Friday stock review. Here we have the S&P 500. We did make a new high today, and we made a new high. Then we had some selling, almost a perfect doji. So the close was 453.12. And the open was 453.13. So we were literally 1 penny to the bearish side today. But I mean, that's pretty much as perfect of a doji as you can get on the S&P 500. Only thing that could have made it better was that 1 penny difference. So a lot of indecision up at this all-time high. And it makes sense after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullish days in a row, and then an all-time high after this bounce down here. So I do think that we are going to have some type of rotation back into these moving averages, and then probably continue higher. You know, could this be the high for the year? I mean, maybe. Again, anything's possible, but it would make sense for us to have a little bit of a rotation back down into the moving averages. You know, that doesn't have to be anything massive. Heck, even if we just pulled into the 10, that's only a 1.5% down day. I would like us to refill some of these gaps before we continue higher. So we'll see what happens with the S&P 500. But if you bought any dips in here, maybe you're trimming, maybe you're throwing some collars on, or selling some calls, etc. But I would expect a little bit of a rotation back down. And then the Qs did not make a new all-time high. So this is actually still a little bit of a lower high on the QQQ. With the taper, coming in November, Jay Powell today said, hey, we're on track to start tapering. That could hit some growth stocks. He also had Snap earnings, which we'll talk about. So the Qs, I think, is going to be a little bit weaker than the SPY. You can see this one, actually was looking much weaker on October 4th than the SPY was back over here. But yeah, I think the Q is going to remain a little bit weaker. We have big tech earnings next week, so you never know. Earnings could change everything if they absolutely crush it. But there's some things out there that could cause tech, specifically, and the Nasdaq's very tech heavy, to pull back a little bit more. Which we still have this open retest gap down here, which I would love to see us retest. But if we gap up next week, earnings are good, and we have a continuation, I mean, that's entirely possible as well. The IWM still remains range bound in this channel for pretty much the entire year. I do think that eventually this resolves higher out of this distribution phase, but while it is in a distribution phase, you want to try to buy it as low as possible. I don't really think you can rely on moving averages per se, because they're pretty much sideways. Let's pick some horizontal supports and resistances and look to play those until we have a breakout of this channel in one direction or the other. We'll take a look at Facebook. I know Facebook has earnings coming up, and we played this hammer off the 200 very clean, got out a few days later. Point was never to hold this into earnings. So while it was up about an hour, I took my gains. I know some people sold a little bit higher up here. Came right back down to that entry. I'm not re-entering it right now because it does have earnings coming up soon. And with Snapchat's earnings, social media across the board got hit today. So I do think that Facebook could gap down even if they crush earnings, which, come on, we know they're probably going to crush earnings, right? Where else are people spending advertising dollars? Facebook's cash flow is an absolute beast. But with some of the changes to iOS, and I mean, I know everyone that I talk to, they pretty much always hit no, on their iPhone when they open up the Facebook app and it says, do you want us to share your data? It's pretty obvious. So those targeted ads go for a lot more than, non-targeted ads. And so could that hurt some margins on Facebook? It definitely could. But if this does gap down into like this double top over here, which became new support over in this area, like 300 to 304, I definitely think that is a buying zone for Facebook, even if it's just based off of the metaverse. So they got some big metaverse investing and plays coming up, and I would like a pullback down into here. It's about 20%. That's when you'll start to hear if we trade down here, you'll start to hear Facebook's in a bear market, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's probably a time to start buying if you want to start acquiring some Facebook. DWAC. So this is allegedly the SPAC. I say allegedly because you never know with these SPACs. They don't have to buy whatever, the market thinks they're going to buy or whatever they say they initially want to buy. They got 2 years. They could buy anything. Allegedly, it's going to be the Trump SPAC for the, what is it, truthsocial.com or whatever it is. Who knows if that comes to fruition or not, but it absolutely exploded the last 2 days. I mean, this thing went from like $9 to $175 this morning. It got halted like 15 times. I was actually looking to trade it this morning, but it got halted so much. It was pretty boring to watch. I did day trade it in here in this area and made a little bit of money, but not a ton. And yeah, I'm definitely not holding this overnight. I would not play that or this stock that way. This candle today did not have a whole lot of volume. It actually traded smoother pre-market than when the market was actually open because of circuit breakers, etc. So there wasn't a volume blow off today. Could this be the top? It definitely could be, but it might not be. So definitely keep this one on your radar for some potential. Only play this in the momentum side, in my opinion. Only play it with money you are willing to lose because this app isn't even out yet. You can't even download it, etc. But you can make money on these things, especially when you're using momentum strategies. Throughout here, there's definitely money to be made. We did get a little momentum back above the 10 over in this area, and unfortunately it kind of died off. We're down a little bit after hours, so don't hold this thing overnight. There's no options on it yet, so use shares and use wide stops, or make sure that it's money that you can afford to lose. Don't play it with margin. I did hear today that some brokers were requiring like 300% margin on the position if you were trading it, so just be careful out there. Some of the apes, I think, were selling out of AMC and GameStonk in order to play this thing. We had a request for AWK. This actually looks pretty nice. American Water Works. So this is a water utility. I mean, we all need water, so that's kind of cool. And it looks like a W pattern. So double bottom off the 100. The buy was probably right here the last couple days. So if you're in on the last couple days with a price action, I think that looks pretty decent. We do have earnings coming up soon. It's a utility. It's probably not going to move, massively fast or anything like that. I'm sure it pays an okay dividend, 60 cents. That's not great, but it does pay a dividend, and it is double bottoming off the 100 simple moving average on the daily. We're back above this resistance / support over there. Yeah, it looks good. If you're already in, I think you know where your stop can be, and you can stay long and look to sell into a push up there. Snapchat absolutely destroyed today. It was down 26%. This was down 30% after hours. Tried to get some buying, and then just pretty much bled out all day long. There was no support for Snapchat. This looks like a huge island reversal, and technically it filled this over here, but this gap, there is an open spot in here. Pretty nasty breakaway gap below all of the long-term moving averages. Horizontal support did not hold at all. So this thing is in trouble. And the way this candle closed, it's probably in trouble for an entire quarter. Unless this starts to bounce immediately, this thing's going to get smokehoused all the way till they have their next earnings probably, which on a weekly chart, if you go to the long terms, this thing could easily come down all the way to 41. I have no position in Snapchat. I've always thought Snapchat's kind of dumb. I never got it. Maybe I'm just a boomer and I'm too old, and their interface I feel like is horrible, etc. So I'd be bearish on this one. I would like to see it put in 1 or 2 inside days, and then honestly I would look to short the thing. Huge bearish volume, closing below, tons of support, a bunch of people are trapped. This is probably a bigger punishing gap than when like Kylie Jenner deleted it. Where was it? Like over here somewhere, Kylie Jenner deleted Snapchat and then it had this huge, you know, rollover. So it needs to do something like this and recover pretty quickly, because otherwise, yeah, this thing is it's going to be in trouble, I think, on Snapchat. So don't be long, I don't think, on Snapchat. Maybe I'm wrong, but who knows? Beyond Meat did gap down pretty aggressively today out of this channel under the $100 support, but it did get bought up and it did have some good volume. So I do think if this puts in one or two inside candles and they have a decent, you know, the problem is like earnings right around the corner. If they have a decent earnings, let's see, when is their actual earnings? TradingView is always wrong, so I like to double check it. November 10th. So if they do have, you got a little bit of time to play it. You can get one or two inside days, play it for a little bit of a gap fill before earnings. You could probably do that. Is this exhaustion volume to the downside on Beyond Meat? Maybe. We'll see what happens. But if we do take this candle out anytime before earnings, and this thing's probably just going to get absolutely shredded. So be very careful playing Beyond Meat down here. But it did hold today. So if we put in one or two inside days and we gap up, could be for a quick day trade possibly, or a quick swing trade. So that's my thoughts on those tickers and the overall markets. I know on Monday I mentioned Dan reteaching our beginner course live October 25th through the 29th. The recordings are going to be available for registrants, people that register. There's already one for free on our website, but if you want to be there live, $35. You get to be there live, listen to Dan, ask him questions for, what is this, 4 or 5 days, an hour, 4 or 5 hours. So that is, man, we're paying Dan pennies to do this thing. He's not even making like less than $7 an hour on this. So yeah, I think that's very, very doable and very cheap for, giving Dan a few pennies for his time. But check out reallifetrading.com. I'll throw the link below for that. Again, $35, not very much for our beginner course live. And don't forget to comment down below with any tickers you want us to review next week. Thanks so much, everyone. Love life, live life, trade it.